In a time beyond time, in the hidden folds of existence where the divine and the earthly intertwine, arises an ancestral voice resonating with the echo of cosmic secrets. That voice belongs to Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, whose words have traversed the ages, carrying with them the arcane knowledge of gods and the hidden mysteries of the universe. Kore Cosmou is a gateway to this vast and enigmatic knowledge. As you delve into its pages, prepare for a journey that will take you beyond the stars and shadows, where the boundaries of reality dissolve and hidden truths are revealed. In this text, the words of Hermes Trismegistus come to life, guiding you through the secrets of the soul, creation, and the destiny of humanity. Listen attentively, for each sentence holds a fragment of ancient wisdom, a reflection of the eternal light that illuminates the darkest corners of the universe. Open your mind and heart, and allow the wisdom of Kore Cosmou to envelop you, revealing the secrets that only the initiated have come to understand. Welcome to a mystical and transcendental journey. Welcome to Kore Cosmou. First part. Having said this, and if it is poured forth to Horus, the sweet breath of immortality, which souls receive from the gods, thus begins the holiest discourse. The heaven crowned with stars is situated above the universal nature. O my son, O light, and there is nothing lacking of that which constitutes the entire world. It is necessary, therefore, that all nature be adorned and completed by that which is above, since this order cannot function from bottom to top. The supremacy of the great mysteries over the lower ones is imperative. The celestial order reigns over the earthly, as it is absolutely determined and inaccessible to the idea of death. Thus, things that are subject to lamentation are filled with fear before the wonderful beauty and eternal permanence of the divine world. It is true that they were a spectacle worthy of contemplation and desire, these magnificences of the heavens, the revelations of God still unknown, and the sumptuousness of the night illuminated with a penetrating glow, though certainly lesser than that of the heavens, and all the other mysteries that move on high in a harmonious cadence and govern and sustain the things below by secret influences. And while the universal architect refrained from putting an end to this unceasing fear, to these anxious investigations, ignorance enveloped the universe. But when he deemed it good to reveal himself to the world, he inspired the gods with the enthusiasm of love, and poured into their minds the splendor contained in his chest, so that they were first inspired with the will to seek, then with the desire to find, and finally with the desire to modify. Now, my marvelous son Horus, all this could not happen among mortals, as they did not exist, but it took place in the universal soul in coalition with the mysteries of heaven. This was Hermes, the cosmic thought. He contemplated the universe of things, and having seen, understood, and having understood, he had the power to manifest and reveal what he thought. He wrote what he thought, he wrote in part, he hid in silence wisely, and speaking in turns, so that while the world lasted, these things were sought. And thus, having compelled the gods, his brothers, to follow his march, he ascended to the stars. But he had as his successor his son and heir to his knowledge, and a little later Hazel, Pio, and Jode, according to the advice of Pan, and in fasts and all those for whom sovereign providence reserves an exact knowledge of divine things. The month was then justified also in the presence of those around them, since he had not completely revealed the theory to his son because of his youth. But I, having seen myself lifted up, could contemplate with my eyes that see the invisible secrets of the beginning of things, and from a distance but with certainty, I understood that the sacred symbols of the cosmic elements were hidden near the secrets of Osiris. Hermes returned to heaven, having pronounced an invocatory discourse. It is not fitting, O my son, that this recital in full should be informed of the words of Hermes when he established his sacred books. He said, "You, in whose pages my hand has engraved the remedies by which incorruptibility is conferred, remain forever beyond the reach of destruction and corruption, invisible and hidden from all those who frequent these regions, until the day when the ancient heaven of worthy instruments will call souls, whom the Creator will call, having pronounced over their books this invocation. He enveloped us with his covers, he returned to the sphere that belonged to him, and they all remained hidden for a sufficient time. and nature, O my son, remained sterile until the hour when those who were ordered to contemplate the heavens advanced toward God, the King of all things, condemned this general inertia and affirmed the need to divide the universe. Only he could carry out this work. They beseeched him, saying, "Consider what already exists and what is necessary for the future." With these words, the god smiled, O benign one, and ordered nature to exist, and flowing with his voice, the feminine presented herself with all her beauty. The admiring gods contemplated this marvel, and the great ancestor, losing for nature an elixir, ordered it to be fertile. And immediately, penetrating the universe with his gaze, he shouted, "Let the heavens be the fullness of all things." And of heaven and of ether God spoke, and it was done. But nature, in communion with itself, understood that it should not transgress the command of the Father, and in union with work, produced a very beautiful daughter whom she called Invention, and with whose existence God agreed. And having differentiated the created things, he filled them with mysteries and gave them the command of invention. Then, as he did not want the higher world to be active, he considered it appropriate to fill it with spirits, so that no region remained motionless and in inertia. And to carry out this task, he used his sacred art, because by taking from himself the essence that was necessary and mixing it with the intellectual flame, he combined these with other materials through unknown procedures. And having achieved through secret formulas the union of these principles, he endowed the universal combination with movement gradually. In the midst of the protoplasma shone a very subtle, pure and clear substance, whose elements from which it had been generated were transparent, and only the artist perceived it. Soon it achieved its perfection without being melted by fire or cooled by breath, but possessing the stability of a special combination, and having its own type and constitution, he granted it to a happy man, and in accordance with the likeness of his energies, he called it consciousness. From this product he formed the myriads of souls, using the most select part of the mixture for the purpose he had in mind, and proceeded with order and measure according to his wisdom and reason. The souls were not necessarily different, but the choicest part, animated by divine movement, was not identical to the rest. The first layer was superior to the second, more perfect and pure. The second, indeed inferior to the first, was superior to the third, and so on to the 60 degrees in which the total number was completed. Only God established this law, that all should be eternal equally, since they had a single essence whose forms only he determined. He traced the limits of their stay in the heights of nature, so that they would move the wheel according to the laws of order and wise discretion for the joy of the Father. Then, having gathered in these splendid regions the souls of all degrees, he said to them, "O souls, beautiful children of my breath and care, you whom I have produced with my hands to consecrate to my universe, listen to my words as a law. Do not leave the place assigned to you according to my will, the dwelling that awaits you in heaven with its galaxies of stars and thrones of virtue. If you attempt any transgression against my decree, I swear by my sacred breath, by this elixir from which I formed you, and by my creative hands, that I will quickly forge chains for you and cast upon you a punishment." Having spoken thus, my master God mixed the remaining elements with genius and water, and while pronouncing these powerful and mystical words, though different from the first, he infused into the liquid protoplasma movement and life. He made it thicker and more plastic, and formed from it living beings in human form. What remained, he gave to the noblest souls inhabiting the region of the gods in the zone of the stars, whom are called sacred geniuses. "Work," he said, "my sons, children of my nature, take the residues of my task, and let each of you create beings in your image. I will give you models." Then he took the zodiac and ordered the world in conformity with vital movements, and placed the animal signs after those of human form. And after giving breath to the creative and generative forces for all beings yet to come, he withdrew, promising to unite to each visible work an invisible breath and a reproductive principle, so that each being would engender its like without the need to continuously create new entities. "And what did the souls, O my mother Isis?" responded. They took the mixed material and began to reflect upon it and to worship this combination. the work of the Father. Then they sought to discover of what it was composed, and the truth is that it was not easy to find. Fearing that this search would provoke the Father's anger, they set about carrying out his orders. So taking the upper part of the protoplasma, that which was lighter, they created from it the race of birds. The compound, now more compact and of denser consistency, they formed from it the quadrupeds, while from the thicker part, which needed a moist vehicle as support, they made the fishes. What remained, cold and heavy, the souls used to make the reptiles immediately. O my son, proud of their work, they were not afraid to transgress the divine law, and despite the prohibition, they withdrew from the places assigned to them, as they did not wish to remain longer in the same dwelling. They moved incessantly, and rest seemed to them like death. But my friend's son Hermes could not escape the eye of the Lord of all things. He worried about punishing them and preparing strong chains for them. Then, as penance for the souls, the governor and master of the universe decided to shape the human organism. After calling me, Hermes said to me in this way, "O soul of my soul, sacred thought of my thought, how long must earthly nature remain sad? For how long must the creation already accomplished remain inactive and without praise? Bring here before me all the gods of heaven." Thus spoke God, said Hermes, and all obeyed his decree. "Look at the earth," he said to them, "and all the things below it." They quickly looked and understood the will of the Lord. And when he spoke to them of the creation of man and asked each one what he could offer to the race that was about to be reborn, the sun first said, "I will illuminate humanity." Then the moon promised in turn, adding that she had already previously created fear, silence, sleep, and memory. Kronos announced that he had begotten justice and necessity. Zeus said, "To prevent perpetual wars for the future race, I generated fortune, hope, and peace." Ares declared himself the father of conflict, impetuous zeal, and emulation. They soon invited Aphrodite. "Regarding me, O master," she said, "I will grant humanity desire with joyful pleasure and laughter. The punishment to which our sisters, the souls, are destined, I did not think of them much." These words from Aphrodite, O son, were heard with happiness, said Hermes. "Grant to human nature wisdom, hope, persuasion, and truth, and I will never cease to ally myself with invention to always protect the mortal life of those men who have been born under my sign, seeing that the Creator and Father has attributed knowledge and intelligence to the zodiac signs, especially when the movement that moves the stars is in harmony with the physical forces of each one. He is master of the world. He rejoiced to hear these things and decreed the creation of the human race." "Regarding me," said Hermes, "I sought what material needed to be employed in this work and invoked the Lord. He ordered the souls to release the residue of the protoplasma substance here, and after having taken it, I saw that it was completely dry. Then I used a large excess of water with which to renew the combination of the substance so that the product would be soluble, flexible, and light, and that strength could not be added there to intelligence. When I finished my work, it was beautiful, and I rejoiced to see it. From below, I called upon the Lord to contemplate what I had done. He saw it and quickly approved. He ordered me to incorporate the souls, and they were horrified when they saw what their sentence was. These words, said Isis, moved me. For this my son Horus taught this mystery. Our ancestor Kamef also learned it from Hermes, and inscribes the digital of all things. In turn, I received it from the elder. Sometimes when he admitted me to the invitation of the black veil, and you in the same way, O wonderful and illustrious son, receive it from me. The souls were about to be imprisoned in bodies, at which some sighed and lamented, like when a wild and free animal is suddenly chained at the first moment of subjection, of servitude, and breaking of the cherished habits of the jungle. It fights and rebels, refusing to follow its conqueror, and if the occasion arises, kills him. Others, on the other hand, hissed like snakes, or let out the most piercing screams and the most afflicted words, looking hopelessly from top to bottom at the great heavens. Said one, the beginning of our birth, ether, pure hands, and sacred breath of the sovereign God, and you bright stars, eyes of the tireless gods, light of the sun and the moon, our early brother, what pain, what surrender is this? We must abandon these great and urgent spaces, this sacred sphere, all these splendors of empiricism, and the happy republic of the gods to be precipitated into these vile and miserable dwellings that crime or the damned we have committed. How can we have deserved, sinful men that we are, the punishments that await us, to contemplate the sad future prepared for us, subjected to the needs of a soluble and fluctuating body, never again to distinguish with our eyes the divine souls? Hardly between these watery spheres will we perceive with sighs our ancestral sky. During intervals, we will even stop seeing it. Through this disastrous sentence, direct life is denied to us. We can only see with the help of external light. They are no more than windows we possess, not eyes and our pain. Will not be less when we hear in the air the fraternal sigh of the winds with which we will never again be able to mix ours, as they will have as their dwelling place, instead of the open and sublime world, the narrow prison of our chest. Turn that leads us to this, and that causes such a high place to descend so low, a limit to our sufferings, or a master and father as soon as you become indifferent to your work. A term to our worthy penance. Give us a final word while we can still contemplate the expansion of the luminous spheres. This prayer of the souls was granted, my son Horus, since the Lord was present and seated on the throne. He spoke to them thus: O souls, you must be governed by desire and necessity. After me, these must be your masters and guides, souls subordinate to my scepter, which never fails. You know that as long as you remain unblemished, you will avoid the regions of the heavens. If among you we find any deserving of reproach, he will inhabit the dwelling destined for him in mortal bodies. If your faults are slight, you will be saved from the bonds of flesh and return to heaven. But if you become guilty of a greater crime, if you deviate from the ends for which you have been created, then you will not inhabit the heavens or human bodies. Instead, you will pass into those of animals without reason. Having spoken thus, O my son Horus, he breathed upon them. It is not due to luck that your fate has been ordained. If you act wrongly, it will be worse. It will be better if your actions are in accordance with your birth. I will be the one and no other who will be your witness and judge. Understand, it is for your errors in the past that you must be punished and imprisoned in human bodies, in different bodies, as I have told you. Our rebirth will be different. Dissolution will be a benefit that restores our previous condition. But if your conduct is not deserving of me, your prudence turning blind, guiding you backwards, will lead you to consider good fortune what is actually a reprimand and fear something much better, as if it were a cruel injury. The most just of you should, in their future transformations, approximate them among men, upright kings, true philosophers, leaders and legislators, true seers, gatherers of healthy plants, cunning musicians, intelligent astronomers, and wise augurs, instructed ministers, all beautiful and good offices, as among birds are the eagles that do not seek to devour those of their own kind, and do not allow the weaker to be attacked in their presence, because justice is in the nature of the eagle. Among the quadrupeds, the lion, because it is a strong, untamable animal, overcome by sleep, with a mortal body that performs immortal labors and never tires or is deceived. Among the reptiles, the dragon, because it is powerful, long-lived, innocent, and a friend of men to tame without any venom, and dies at a very old age, approaching the nature of the gods. Among the fish, the dolphin, because this creature shows pity for those who fall into the water and carries them to land if they are still alive, refraining from devouring them if they are dead, although it is the most voracious of all aquatic animals. With these words, God became an incorruptible intelligence. This is what he resumes, the manifest. After these things, my son Horus arose from the earth a very powerful spirit, without any burden of corporeal envelope, strong in wisdom but wild and terrifying, though unable to ignore the knowledge he sought. Seeing that the human model was beautiful and majestic in appearance, and that the souls were about to enter their envelopes, he said, "Who are these?" Hermes, minister of the gods, answered, "These are men." "It is an impetuous work," he said, "to make men with such penetrating eyes, a tongue so subtle, an ear so delicate that it can even hear things that do not affect it, a essence so fine, and in their hands a sense of touch capable of appropriating everything, or spirit. and a generator thought it would be good that he would be free from care. This future researcher of the beautiful mysteries of nature, are you going to leave it the center of suffering? The one whose thoughts will try to find out the limits of the earth. The men will tear out the roots of the plants, study the properties of natural juices, observe the nature of the stones, dissect not only the animals but also himself, and wanting to know how they were formed, they will extend their daring hands over the sea and, cutting the wood of the wild jungle, will pass from one coast to another looking for each other. They will seek the most secret secrets of nature, even in its heights, and they will study the movements of the sky. Will not this be enough when there is nothing more to know than the farthest limit of the earth? Will they look even there, the last extremities of the night, if they do not perceive any obstacle, if they live free of problems, out of the reach of no fear or anxiety? Nor heaven will be able to curb its audacity. Teach them then the desire and the hope of a form that they know themselves, the fear of the accident and the difficulty, and the painful sting of the frustrated hope. Let the curiosity of their souls prey on mutual love, now satisfied, now deceived in such a way that even the sweetness of the success is an omen that throws them towards misfortune. Let the weight of the fever oppress them and break in them all. Desire suffer, perhaps, or light when hearing this recital of your mother. The surprise and the astonishment seize you in the presence of the evil that falls now on humanity. What you are about to hear is still sadder. The discourse of monkeys, like to Hermes, considered that his advice was good and followed him as flies told him the nature of the divine breath of all things cannot be useless. The Master of the universe has commissioned me to be his agent and supervisor, the deity of the penetrating eye behind already observe and direct all the events, and on my part, to design a mysterious instrument, an inflexible and inviolable measure, to which everything will be subject from birth to final destruction, and that will be the bond of the entities created. This instrument will govern what is on the earth, and all the rest is as Hermes said as we spoke, and immediately worked the instrument quickly, the souls incorporated, and I was praised for my work. Then the Lord summoned the assembly of the gods again. They gathered, and he addressed them in this way. Gods have received a sovereign nature, immortal, and the influence of vast eternity. You whose function is to maintain incessantly the mutual harmony of things. For how long must we rule an unknown empire? For how long must the creation remain invisible to the sun and the moon? Let each of us develop his function in the universe. Let us exercise our power to put an end to the cohesion of inertia. Let chaos become an incredible fable for posterity to inaugurate our great works. I will direct, he spoke. And immediately the cosmic unit hitherto dark opened, and in the heights appeared the heavens with all their mysteries, the earth until now unstable, more solid under the brightness of the sun, and adorned with coverings of wealth. All things are beautiful in the eyes of God, even those which appear ugly to mortals, because everything is made according to divine laws. And God rejoiced in contemplating his works, full of movement and with hands outstretched, reaching for the treasures of nature. Take these, he said, O sacred earth, take these, O venerable one who must be the mother of all things, and henceforth let nothing be lacking to you. With these words, opening his divine hands, he poured his treasures into the universal fount. But they were still unknown, for the newly personified souls, unable to bear their disgrace, sought to rival the celestial gods, proud of their lofty origin, presuming a creation equal to theirs. They rebelled, and then men became their instrument, opposing each other and instigating civil wars. Thus strength opposed weakness, the strong burned and massacred the weak, and flesh and the dead were expelled from sacred places. Then the elements decided to complain to the Lord about the savage condition of humanity. As the evil was already very painful, the elements went to the Creator God and supplicated him in this way. The fire was the first to speak. O Master, Creator of this new world, you, under your mysterious name among the gods, have been revered up to now among all men. Until when, O weakness, have you decreed to leave the human Indios in revolt against the world that calls you? Correct their wild existence with the establishment of peace, grant life law, grant law to the night oracles, fill all things with happy auguries. Let man fear the judgment of the gods, and let no man sin no more. Let crimes receive their just punishment, and let men refrain from straying from rectitude or violating oaths. Let madness come to an end. Teach them to have gratitude for benefits, and thus consecrate me. Call me the offerings and libations. Cures and altars will produce for you exhalations of sweet loves. Now I am contaminated, O Master, because the impious rashness of men forces me to consume flesh. They will not allow me to remain in my nature, perverting and breaking my purity. When it was his turn, the heir spoke, I am corrupted by the effluvium of corpses, O Master. I become pestilent and unhealthy, and from on high I witnessed things I should not contemplate. Then the water spoke in this way, O my illustrious son, wonderful father, creator of all divine things, incarnate deity, author of the nature that leads us all, order the waters of the streams to always be pure. For now both rivers and seas are obliged to bathe the destroyer and receive his victims. Finally the earth appeared, O glorious son of mine, and thus began the King Ife of the celestial choirs and lord of his orbits, master and father of the elements that allow us to grow and of growing all things, and to all and to whom should we? Inundate venerable, although your orders, received in return for the animals of which, earth, where contains all things by humans, are, and all evil by me the also know. Gods their sacred is my favor. Myself the only thing that gives everything, it is all. A sovereign justice will extend its kingdom even into the shadows beneath the earth, so that each man will receive his deserved retribution. Immediately the elements ceased their complaints, and each one resumed its duties and influence. And how, O my mother, Horus said subsequently, did you obtain the earth after the divine effusion? I will not recount this life, said Isis, and I dare not, O mighty Horus, declare the origin of your lineage, lest men in the future learn of the generation of gods. I will only say that the supreme God, creator and architect of the world, agreed with the earth your father Osiris and the great goddess Isis to bring about the awaited salvation. Through them, life attained its full meaning. The savage and bloody wars ended. They consecrated temples to their ancestors, the gods, and established settlements. They gave laws, nutrition, and clothing to mortals. My mystical writings, Hermes said, must be read, and by dividing them into two parts, those that are useful for man must be believed and inscribed on columns and obelisks. Those who established the first courts instituted the kingdom of justice and order everywhere. With them began the faith of treaties and the introduction into human life of duties and religious oaths. They taught burial rites for those who ceased to live, questioned the horrors of death, showed sad spirits how to return to their human bodies, and that if the entrance path is closed to them, it leads to a failed life. Instructed by Hermes, they engraved on tablets that the air is filled with geniuses, instructed by Hermes in the secret laws of God. Only they were the teachers and legislators of humanity, initiating them in the arts, sciences, and benefits of civilized life. Instructed by Hermes regarding affinities, through compassion, the Creator established between heaven and earth religious presentations and sacred mysteries. Considering the corruptible nature of bodies, they ordained prophetic initiation so that the prophet who raises his hands to God would be instructed in all things. Thus, philosophy and magic nourished the soul, and medicine cured the sufferings of the flesh. Having accomplished all these things, my son, and seeing that the world was reaching its splendor, Osiris and I were summoned by the inhabitants of heaven, but we could not return there without praising the Lord, so that the celestial vision would fill the expanse, and the path to a happy ascension would open for us, since God delights in hymns. Mother, said Horus, teach me these hymns so that I too may be instructed. Listen, my friend, replied Isis. Second part, my illustrious son, if you want to know more, ask. Honored mother, Horus replied, I would be pleased to know how real souls are born. Isis answered, Here, my son, I know what you seek. The distinctive character of real souls in the universe is governed by 4 regions under a fixed and immutable law: the sky, the ether, the air, and the holiest earth. In the heavens dwell the gods, governed as is all else by the Creator of the universe. In the ether, the stars are governed by the great sky, the sun. In the air, the souls of geniuses are governed by the moon. On earth, humans and other animals are governed by the soul, which during that time is their ruler. Because the gods themselves beget those who will reign according to the earthly race, princesses are the offspring of kings, and the one most worthy of being king is greater than the rest. The sun, which is closer to God than the moon, is greater and stronger than it, and it is subject to him in both rank and power. The king is the last of the gods and the first of men. As long as he stays on earth, his divine part is hidden, but he possesses something that sets him apart from other men and brings him closer to God. The soul within him comes from a higher region than those of common men. Souls destined to reign over the earth descend there for two reasons. Some have lived without blemish in previous lives and deserve apotheosis. For them, this royalty is a preparation for the divine state. There are also sacred souls that, due to some slight breach of the inner and divine law, receive royalty as penance, where the suffering and pain of incarnation are mitigated. The condition of these souls is to take a body that is unlike others. They are as blessed as when they were free. Regarding the characteristics of these kings, the variety lies not in their souls, for all are royal, but in the nature of the angels and geniuses that assist them. Souls destined for these roles are not without ministry and companionship. Celestial justice, even when it has exiled them from the abode of the blessed, treats them according to their nature. When then my son Horus, the angels of the Lord, and the designated geniuses are bellicose, the soul under their charge takes on this character, forgetting its own, or rather putting it aside, until a future change of condition. If the guardian angels are of a noble order, then the soul follows in peace. If they are inclined to judge, then the soul judges. If they are musicians, then the soul sings. If they truly love, then the soul is philosophical. Thus souls necessarily follow the teachings of their guardians. When incarnated, they predict their true state, and while exiled from it, they approach the intelligences by which they have been incarnated. My explanation is complete. Mother, said Horus, I understand, but you have not yet informed me how souls are born on earth. My son, replied Isis, different offices exist on earth. The same occurs among souls that occupy different positions. The soul that emerges from a higher sphere is nobler than the rest, just as a free man among men is nobler than a slave. Elevated and royal souls are necessarily the teachers of men. How are souls born, men or women? My son, they are all equal in nature, as they come from a region where the Creator has formed them. There are no men or women among them. This distinction exists only in bodies and not among incorporeal beings. Some are more energetic and more gentle. These belong to the air in which all things are formed, because an ethereal body envelops the soul. In these bodies, souls manifest more vivacity and energy. As to how wise souls are born, Isis replied, the organ of vision is wrapped in garments. When these garments are thick and dense, the sight is obscured. When they are good and subtle, the sight is penetrating. The same applies to the soul. It also has its incorporeal coverings. Like itself, these coverings are internal airs. When they are subtle, clear, and transparent, then the soul is spiritual. When, on the contrary, they are dense, thick, and pompous, then she cannot see far and only discerns, as in cloudy weather, what is right in front of. Her steps, and Horus said, Why, my mother, are the souls of men who are not from our sacred country less open than the souls of those who belong there? And Isis answered, The earth is situated in the middle of the universe like a man lying on his back and contemplating the sky, and the various regions of the earth correspond to the different members of men. Earth turns its gaze towards the sky, as did its father, following in its changes the changes of the heavens. Its head remains to the south, its right shoulder to the east. The left is turned towards the wind of Libya. Its feet are under the constellation of the bear, the right one under the tail, and the left under the head of the bear. Its back is down. The regions of the sky closest to the bear, half of its body is under the center of the sky. It contemplates as proof of these things that those who dwell in the south have a beautiful face and abundant hair, while the easterners have strong hands in conflict and separate for the bow, for they are right-handed. The Westerners are strong and fight with the left hand, attributing to the left side the functions that belong in another way to the right. Those who dwell under the bear are distinguished by the attributes of their feet and the beauty of their legs. Those who dwell beyond the bear in the climate of Italy and Greece are distinguished by the beauty of their loins, and hence their tendency to prefer males. This part of the body, as it is also whiter than the rest, produces men of the whitest color. The sanctified region of our ancestors is in the middle of the earth, and as half of the human body is the seat of the heart and the heart of the soul, this is the reason, my son, why the man of this land, in addition to all the qualities he possesses in common, also has a superior intelligence and wisdom, because the heart of the earth leads and nourishes him. Furthermore, my son, the south is the storehouse of the clouds, and where they gather, and there, according to what is said, our river the Nile flows when the cold is abundant. Now, where the clouds descend, the air becomes thicker and filled with values that expand like a veil, not only over sight, but also over intelligence. The east, my son Horus, is continually disturbed and shining under the dawn, as is the west under the dusk. Then those who dwell in these regions can hardly preserve a clear perception. The north, by its glacial temperature, affects the mind as it does with the body. Only the central earth, clear and serene, is favored, as are those who inhabit it. It gives birth in perpetual tranquility, adorns and completes its offspring, fights alone against all of us, triumphs, and as a valuable governor shares with the defeated the fruits of victory. Explain more, my august mother. Is it what causes in living men during long illnesses an alteration of the discernment of reason, even of the soul itself? Isis answered, Among animals there are those who have affinity with fire, others with water, others with earth, others with air, others again with 2 or 3 elements or with the 4, or inversely some feel antipathy for fire, others for water, others for earth, others for air, or again for 2, 3, or all 4 elements. Thus, the locust and all kinds of insects flee from fire, the eagle, the falcon, and other flying birds in water. The fish are terrified of the air and the earth. The serpent hates the open air, and like all crawling creatures, adores the ground. All fish delight in the deep, birds in the air, where they spend their lives. Those who fly higher delight in fire or the sun and live in their vicinity. There are even certain creatures that frolic in the fire, like the salamanders that have their dwelling in it. The elements envelop the body, and every soul that dwells in a body is overwhelmed and chained by the 4 elements. Then it is natural for the soul to have affinity with certain elements and aversion to others, so it cannot enjoy perfect happiness. However, since the soul is of divine origin, it struggles and contemplates even within this young corporeal body. But its thoughts are not what they would be if free from the body, and if the body were disturbed and troubled by illness or terror, the soul itself would be agitated like a man amidst stormy waves. You have given me admirable instruction in 3 parts, O Isis, the most powerful of mothers, about the marvelous creation of souls by God, and I am filled with admiration. But you have not yet shown me where the souls depart willingly from their bodies. I would gladly admire this mystery, and give you alone thanks for the initiation. Isis replied, Listen, my son, for this necessary question holds a very important place and must not be forgotten. Hear my answer, O great and marvelous descendant of illustrious Osiris. Do not think that souls, upon leaving the body, mix confusedly in the vast expanse and disperse into the universal and infinite spirit without power to return to their bodies, preserve their identity, or seek again their primal dwelling. The water spilled from a vessel never returns to its source. It has no locality of its own, but mixes with the mass of waters. It is not so with souls, O wise Hermes. I am initiated into the mysteries of immortal nature, walking in the paths of truth, and I will reveal all to you without the slightest omission. And first I will tell you that water, being a body without reason composed of myriad fluid particles, is, my son, a personal entity, the real work of the hands and mind of God, enduring in intelligence. That which proceeds from unity and not from multiplicity cannot mingle with other things, and for the soul to unite with the body, God subjects this harmonious union to necessity. Souls, therefore, do not return haphazardly or by chance to the same place, but each departs to its appointed place, determined by what the soul experiences while still in proximity to the body, burdened with a weight contrary to its nature. Listen then to this comparison, dear Horus. Imagine that men, eagles, doves, swans, hawks, swallows, sparrows, flies, serpents, lions, leopards, wolves, dogs, hares, oxen, sheep, and certain amphibious animals like seals, hydras, and turtles are all enclosed together in the same prison. If suddenly set free, each creature would escape. Man would seek cities and public places, eagles the air where nature teaches them to live, doves the lower air, swans regions where they can sing, flies the vicinity of the ground as high as human breath extends, because the property of flies is to live there and flutter over the earth. Lions and leopards would go to the mountains, wolves to solitudes, dogs would follow the steps of men, hares would move to the forests, oxen to the fields and meadows, sheep to pastures, and serpents would seek the caves of the earth. Seals and turtles would gather in shallow and constant waters to enjoy, according to their nature. Similarly, according to the shore and depth of the waters, each creature would return, driven by its inner discernment, to the dwelling suitable for it. Thus every soul, whether human or inhabiting the earth in other conditions, knows where it must go, unless truly some child of Typhon made you see that a bull survives in the waters or a turtle in the air. Even when immersed in blood and flesh, souls do not violate the law of order, although under penance, because union with the body is a much better penance. They conform to the place when released from their terms and set free. Now this sacred law that extends even into the heavens is thus, illustrious son. Consider the hierarchy of souls. The expanse between the empyrean and the moon is occupied by gods, stars, and the powers of providence. Between the moon and us, my son, is the abode of souls, the air, impossible to measure, which we call wind. It has within itself a commendable form in which it moves to refresh the earth, as I will tell you successively. But this movement of the air upon itself does not hinder the path of souls, nor does it hinder them from ascending and descending without obstacle. They fly through the air without mixing with it and without being confused in it, as water flows over oil. This expanse, my son, is divided into 4 provinces and 60 regions. The first province from the earth upwards includes 4 regions, stretching as far as some summits or promontories. It is incapable of transcending. The second province comprises 8 regions where the movements of the winds arise. Be attentive, my son, for you have heard the ineffable mysteries of the earth, the heavens, and the sacred fluid that extends between them. In the province of the winds, birds fly above. There is no moving air nor any creature above it. The air, with all beings it contains, is distributed throughout all the limits within its reach, among the 4 quarters of the earth. While the earth cannot rise in the mansions of the air, the third province consists of 16 regions filled with pure and light elements. The fourth contains 32 regions where the air, completely light and diaphanous, is penetrated by the element of fire. This is the order reigning without confusion from the depths to the heights, the birds, 4 general divisions, 12 intervals, 60 regions, and in these dwell the souls, each according to its corresponding nature. Truly they are all of one substance, yet they constitute a hierarchy, and the further a region is removed from the earth, the higher the dignity of the souls inhabiting it. And now, illustrious Horus, what remains to be explained to you are the kinds of souls inhabiting each of these regions, and this is what I shall expound, starting with the highest. The space that extends between the earth and heaven is divided into regions, my son Horus, according to measure and harmony. To these regions, our ancestors have given various names. Some call them zones, others firmaments, others spheres. In these regions dwell the souls released from the body and those that have not yet been incorporated. The stations they occupy depend on their dignity. In the uppermost region dwell the divine and royal souls. The most ignoble souls, those that float upon the surface of the earth, are in the lowest sphere, and in the middle regions reside the souls of ordinary rank. Thus, my son, the souls destined to govern descend from the upper zones, and when liberated from the body they return there or even higher, unless they have acted contrary to the dignity of their nature and the laws of God. For if they have transgressed, providence from above compels them to descend to the lower regions, according to the measure of their faults. In the same manner, it also leads other souls lower in power and dignity from the lower spheres to a higher abode. For above dwell two ministers of universal providence. One is the guardian of souls, the other their director, who sends them to their place and predestines for them a body. The first minister watches over them. The second liberates or binds them according to the will of God. In this way, the aegis governs the changes taking place above. Just as on earth, it molds and constructs the vessels in which souls are enclosed. This law is complemented by two energies, memory and experience. Memory directs in nature the preservation and maintenance of all original types assigned in heaven. The function of experience is to endow each descending soul with a suitable body, so that passionate souls enter vigorous bodies. Lazy souls have sluggish bodies, the most active souls have active bodies, gentle souls have gentle bodies, and the most powerful souls have powerful bodies. Cunning souls have agile bodies, in summary, so that each soul has a nature appropriate to its rank. For it is not a just motive that flying creatures are clothed in feathers, that intelligent creatures are endowed with senses better and superior to those of others, that beasts of the field are endowed with horns, tusks, and other instruments, that reptiles are endowed with wavy and flexible bodies, and that unless their nature moisture makes them weak, they are armed with teeth or sharp scales, so they are less than us in danger of death. As for fish, these timid souls have assigned the place where they live in this element, where light is deprived of its double activity, because in water fire does not illuminate or burn, each time swimming with the help of its spiny fin. It flees wherever it wants, and its weakness is protected by the darkness of the deep. Thus, souls are confined in bodies that resemble them in human form. Those souls that have received reason in flying creatures, souls of wild nature in beasts, irrational souls whose only law is force in reptiles, cunning souls who do not confront surprise face to face but through ambushes, while fish consecrate those souls and measures that do not deserve the enjoyment of other elements. In every animal order, there are individuals who transgress the laws of their being. "In what way, my mother?" said Russ. And Isis responded, "In this way, a man who acts against reason, a beast born of necessity, a reptile that forgets its cunning, a fish that loses its timidity, a bird that renounces its freedom. You have heard what should be said regarding the hierarchy of souls, their descent, and the creation of their bodies, my son. In every order of souls, there are a few real souls of diverse characters, some fierce, some cold, some proud, some gentle, some cunning, some simple, some contemplative, some active. This diversity belongs to the regions from which they descend to bodies. And as you said, my son, the king of souls who has existed until now is your father Osiris. The king of bodies is the prince of each nation who governs. The king of wisdom is the father of all things. The initiator is the thrice great Hermes. Asclepius presides over medicine, the son of Hephaestus. Strength and power are under the influence of Osiris, and after him under yours, my son. Philosophy depends on Arneva, poetry again on Asclepius, the son of Inmude. If you think about it, you will see that there are many royalties and many kings, but supreme royalty belongs to the highest region. Lesser kinships correspond to the spheres that give birth to those who come from the brightest sphere touch on fire. Those who come from the watery zone frequent the liquid spheres. In the region of art and learning, those dedicated to art and science have been born. In the region of inactivity, those who live in calm and laziness. Everything that is done and said on earth originates from the heights where all essences are given measure and balance, just as there is nothing that does not emanate from above that does not return there. Explain this to me more, Isis replied. A clear proof of these exchanges has been stamped on all creatures by sacred nature. The breath we take from the upper air, we exhale and inhale again through lungs that perform this function within us. When the path to receive our air is closed, we no longer remain on earth. We depart there. Furthermore, my glorious son, there are other accidents by which the balance of our combination can be destroyed. What then is this combination, my mother? It is the union and addition of the four elements, from which emanates a vapor that surrounds the soul, penetrates the body, and communicates to both their character. Thus, varieties are revealed between souls and bodies. In the composition of a body, if fire dominates, then the soul, already of a fiery nature, receives in this way an excess of heat that turns it into the most energetic and furious, and the body into the most lively and active. If air dominates, the body and soul of the creature are then unstable, wandering, and restless. The domination of water causes the soul to be soft, affable, simple, and easily moldable, because water bends and mixes comfortably with other things. It dissolves them if abundant and wets, and penetrates them if in lesser quantity. A body softened by too much humidity offers weak resistance. A slight illness disintegrates it, gradually dissolving its cohesion. Again, if the element of earth dominates the soul, because the body lacks subtlety and cannot find a path through the density of its organism, then the soul remains enclosed in itself, crushed by the weight it bears, and the body is solid, inactive, and heavy, moving only with effort. But if the elements are all in just balance, then the entire nature is inclined in its actions, subtle in its movements, fluid in its sensations, and of robust constitution. From the predominance of air and fire, birds are born, whose nature resembles that of the elements that generate them. Humans are endowed with an abundance of fire, combined with a little air, water, and earth in equal parts. This excess of fire turns into keenness. Intelligence is a type of flame that does not consume but penetrates. The predominance of water and earth, with sufficient addition of air and a bit of fire, engenders beasts. Those endowed with more fire than the rest have more courage. Equal quantities of water and earth give rise to reptiles lacking in fire. They have neither courage nor sincerity. While an excess of water makes us cold, excess of earth makes us sordid and heavy, and lack of air makes movements difficult. Much water with little earth produces fishes. Absence of fire and earth in them results in timidity and disposition to remain hidden, while the predominance of water and earth in their nature brings them closer due to natural affinity. Earth dissolved in water, moreover, through proportional increase of the elements composing the body itself increases, and its development ceases when the full measure is achieved. As long as, my dear son, the balance is maintained in the original combination, and the vapors that rise from them, that is, as long as the normal proportion of fire, air, earth, and water remains unchanged, the creature will continue in a state of health. But if the elements deviate from the originally determined proportion, not now speaking of growth of activities, nor of what results from a change of order, but of the disruption of balance, whether by addition or diminution of fire or other elements, then illness occurs. And should air and fire, whose nature is one with that of the soul itself, prevail in conflict, then through the dominance of these flesh-destroying elements, the creature will abandon its own state. For the element of earth is the nourishment of the body, and the water with which it is imbued contributes to its consolidation. But it is the airy element that imparts movement, and fire engenders all energies. The vapors produced by the union and combination of these elements, mingling with the soul as if by fusion, carry it along with them and clothe it with their own nature, be it good or bad. As long as it remains in this natural association, the soul maintains the rank it has attained. But if a change occurs, whether in the combination itself or in any of its parts or subdivisions, the vapors, altering their condition, would alter action between soul and body. Fire and air aspiring upwards carry away the soul, their sister, while the elements of water and earth, tending towards the earth like the body, weigh it down and crush it. Study and description of the core cosmos, the mysterious title of this famous hermetic fragment with which this volume begins. Core cosmos, that is, the cosmic virgin, is in itself a revelation of the wonderful identity that subsists between the ancient religious knowledge of the ancient world and that created by Catholic Christianity. Core is the name by which in the mysteries the initiate greeted Persephone, the daughter, and it is also perhaps only by coincidence the Greek word for the pupil or the girl of the eye. However, when we find Isis, the goddess of the moon, and Mithra in their discourse with Horus, who mystically identifies the eye with the soul and compares the tunics of the physical organs of vision with the coverings of the soul. When we also think that precisely the eye through its pupil is the illuminator and the perfecter of the body, and that it is also the soul, the illuminating principle, and the viewer of man. We can hardly consider this analogy in men as unintended or uninstructive. For Kor, or Persephone the maiden, is the personified soul, whose apostasy or descent from the celestial sphere to the terrestrial generation is the theme of the Hermetic parable that follows. The Greek mysteries deal with only two themes. The first is the drama of the abduction and restoration of Persephone. The second, the incarnation, the hammer, and the resurrection of Dionysus or Bacchus. Persephone signified the soul and Dionysus the spirit. Hermetic doctrine teaches the quadruple nature of both the cosmos and man. Of this quadruple nature, two elements were considered immortal and permanent, and the other two mortal and transient. The first are the spirit and the soul, the second the lower mind or sense or body and the physical organism. The spirit and the soul, masculine and feminine respectively, remained throughout the entire process of metempsychosis equal, indissoluble, and incorruptible. Or inferior, they were new in each rebirth and therefore changeable and dissoluble. The spirit, or Dionysus, was considered of a special divine genesis, being the son of Zeus by the immaculate maiden Kor Persephone, daughter of Demeter or the father, and the supermundane intelligence to whom the mysteries are directed as mother. But Kor, although of divine origin, participates more than her son in an earthly nature. Hence, Brock says, according to the theologians who handed down to us the most sacred mysteries, Persephone dwells in the heights in those abodes for the mother that she herself prepared, in inaccessible places exempt from the sensible world. But she also lives below with Pluto, where she manages earthly matters, rules the hidden places of the earth, and provides life to the extremities of the cosmos. Thus considered as the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, Kor is immaculate and celestial in character. Considered as the captive and consort of Hades, she belongs to the underworld and the region of lamentation and dissolution. Indeed, the soul possesses the dual nature that is ascribed to her, because in her inner and proper quality she is incorruptible and inviolable, pre-virgin, whereas in her apparent and relative quality she is defiled and fallen. In the Hermetic fable, the constant emblem of the soul is water or the sea, Maria, and a notable reason for this is the comparison with water which, as much as it may seem contaminated, remains essentially pure because the corruption of the so-called infected water consists in reality of suspended sediments by solution, which make it appear turbid. But this corruption cannot enter its integral constitution in such a way that if the most infected or turbid water were distilled, it would leave all its impurities in the cucurbit and present itself without loss clear and lucid in an alembic. Therefore, it is not without reason that the soul is always called virgin, because in its essential being it is absolutely immaculate and without the stain of sin. The whole history of the world from beginning to end is the story of the generation, fall, penalty, and final absolution of this cosmic virgin, because the soul has two modes or conditions of being, the centrifugal and the centripetal. The first is the condition of its exit, its emergence into matter, or its fall, and the pain and bondage it bears upon itself. This phase is represented in Jewish Kabbalah by Eve. The second condition is that of its entry or emergence from matter, its restitution or glorification in heaven. This phase is presented to us in Christian Gospel and Apocalypse under the name of Mary. Hence the Catholic saying that the Ave of Maria reverses the curse of Eve. Cuban and hearts are exclusively dedicated to him. These write to the Ant-Man the qualities of self-subsistence, unity, universality, immutability, and incorruption. It is independent of karma or acquired character and destiny, and its complete knowledge redeems from karma the personality informed by him. Atman is also the one who sees everything, and as the mantras say, the one who recognizes the universe in its own advance and its own Aman in the universe does not know hatred. In perfect agreement with the Kabbalistic doctrine, the allegory of Kor Cosmos clearly indicates the nature of the original apostasy of the soul. It withdrew from the place assigned to it, as it did not want to remain any longer in the same dwelling. It moved incessantly. Rest seemed like death to it. In this phrase, we have the parallel to the scene represented in the Mysteries where Persephone, voluntarily departing from the mansions of heaven, falls under the power of the god of Hades. Perhaps the most hidden part of the entire allegory is treated very little in the fragmentary discourse of Isis, and the best we can do, then, is to reproduce Thomas Taylor's eloquent exposition on the subject. Here, then, we see the first cause of the descent of the soul, that is, the abandonment of a life fully in accordance with the higher intellect, which is represented covertly by the separation of Proserpina from Ceres. Afterwards, we are told that Jupiter instructs Venus to ascend to his abode and deceive Proserpina from her retreat, so that Pluto can seize her. To prevent any suspicion in the mind of the maiden, he commands Diana and Pallas to accompany her. The three goddesses arrive, finding Proserpina working on a scarf for her mother, in which she had embroidered the primal chaos and the formation of the world. Now, by Venus in this part of the narration, we should understand desire, even in celestial realms, because this is Proserpina's residence until she is abducted by Pluto. She begins to sneak silently and furtively into the most remote places of the soul. By Minerva, we should understand the rational power of the soul, and by Diana, its natural disposition. Finally, the net in which Proserpina had shown the true variety of the material world beautifully represents the principle of illusory operations through which the soul is ensnared by the fascination of imaginative forms. After this, having forgotten her mother's orders, Proserpina is depicted venturing from her retreat through the persuasions of Venus. Then we see her emerging onto the plain with Minerva and Diana, accompanied by a retinue of nymphs, who are clear symbols of the world of generation, and are also fitting companions for the soul about to descend into its fluctuating realms. Furthermore, Proserpina's intention to venture from her retreat is a beautiful symbol of her imminent descent, because she leaves home to seek flowers. This takes place in a meadow filled with the most charming varieties and emitting the most delightful scents. This is a clear image of the soul, primarily according to its external and natural life, which then becomes ensnared by the deceptive attractions of sensible forms. Immediately after this, Pluto forces his passage through the earth, taking advantage of Proserpina and carrying her away. In such a situation, the soul might pathetically exclaim with Proserpina, "O flowers fatally dear and the mother's counsels despised, or the cruel arts of cunning Venus." Pluto hastens to enter the infernal regions. In other words, the soul sinks into the depths and darkness of a material nature. A description follows of her marriage, her union with the dark realm of the body. To this eloquent exposition by Taylor, we must add the description given by Homer in the hymn to Demeter. It is Persephone herself who speaks. "We were gathering beautiful flowers, the lovely saffron of spring, the iris, the hyacinth, and the narcissus, which the wide earth produced in abundance. Happily we were gathering them, when the earth opened beneath us, and there emerged the strong king, he who receives many, and he carried me off deeply distressed under the earth with his golden chariot, and I cried out loudly." Comparing this hermetic allegory of Persephone's descent and form with the Kabbalistic story of Eve's fall, "And she saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." In an additional note to Taylor's dissertations, Dr. Wilder cites from the Greek philosophy of Cebes, "The allegory of the chariot and winged horses in Plato's Phaedrus represents the lower and baser part of human nature, or the body, dragging the soul down to earth and subjecting it to the slavery of bodily conditions. From these conditions arise numerous evils that disturb the mind and cloud reason, because man is inherent to the condition of finite and multiform existence into which we have fallen. Earthly life is a fall. The soul now dwells in the tomb we call the body. We resemble those captive prisoners chained in an underground cave, so poetically described in the 7th book of the Republic, their backs to the light, so that they only see the shadows of passing objects behind them, and to these shadows they attribute perfect realities. Therefore, their stay on earth is a dark imprisonment in the body, a fanciful exile from their true home. Similarly, we read in the core cosmos that the souls, knowing they were about to be imprisoned in material bodies, sighed and lamented, sending towards heaven looks of sorrow and crying piteously, "Oh, what sorrow and horrible pain to leave these vast splendors, this sacred sphere, and all the glories of the blessed sphere of the gods, to precipitate ourselves into these vile and miserable abodes. No longer will we behold the divine and luminous heavens." Who, reading this, does not remember the pathetic lament of Eve leaving the beautiful bowers of ambrosia in paradise, the sad and painful state into which the Virgin falls, will finally be rescued and restored to the supreme abodes. But it is not until the arrival of the Saviour, represented in this allegory before us under the name of Osiris, the regenerated man, this Redeemer himself of divine origin, is represented in other allegories by other names, but the idea is always expressed clearly, and the intention is obvious. Osiris is the equivalent of our Christian doctrine's supreme initiate, or captain of salvation, represented with his wife, all things instructed and directed by the most famous as the celestial conductor of souls from dark abodes, the wise and omnipotent God in whom the initiate recognizes the genius of understanding or divine reason, the nous of Platonic doctrine, and the spirit of mystical Christ. Therefore, as the understanding of sacred things and the faculty to interpret them are a gift of Hermes, this God's name shall be to all science and revelation of hidden and divine nature. Indeed, a divine is someone who knows the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, hence why St. John the prophet, or the divine, is especially beloved by Christ. Hermes was considered the messenger or angel of the gods, descending likewise into the depths of the Hades world to elevate souls and ascending them all, filling all things because understanding must seek both depths and heights. Nothing can be hidden from it, nor can it achieve the fullness of supreme secret knowledge unless it first explores the phenomenal and terrestrial. For one who ascends, how can they do so if not by first descending into the lower parts of the earth with the splendid jubilation and carefree humor that characterizes the Greeks, mixing laughter and joy even with the mysteries of religion, and making their sacred allegories human and musical like no other nation or time. Hermes, the divine revealer, was also absolutely called a thief and the patron of thieves, but in this way, the power and ability of the intellectual entity to make everything its own intellectually were indicated. Thus, by attributing to Hermes the theft of Venus's girdle, as well as the action of stealing and driving Apollo's cattle, it was meant to say that all good and noble gifts, even the attributes of the higher gods themselves, are accessible to understanding, and that there is nothing that intelligence of man cannot reveal, only if man has the ability to seek well. As the immediate companion of the sun, Hermes is the one who opens the gates of the higher heaven, the revealer of light and spiritual life, the mediator between the inner and outer spheres of existence, and the initiator in those sacred mysteries, the knowledge of which is eternal life. The panoply which Greek art gives to Hermes is symbolic of the functions of understanding. It has 4 instruments: the wand, the wings, the sword, and the cap, denoting respectively the science of the magician, the courage of the adventurer, the will of the hero, and the discretion of the adept. Initiates of Hermes recognize no other authority than understanding. They do not call any man on earth king or master. They are free thinkers and republicans, because where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Hence why in his divine institutions, Hermes affirms that those who know God are free from the attacks of the demon and are not even subject to fate. Now the powers of fate reside in the stars, that is, in the cosmic or microcosmic astral sphere, and the astral power was in Greek fable typified by the genius of 100 eyes of the starry zone, noting the giant who sees everything, and that it was the glory of Hermes to have eluded and slain, the allegory of which is that those who possess the hermetic secret are not subject to fate, but have passed beyond the slavery of metempsychosis and have freed themselves from ceaselessly revolving on the wheel of destiny. Knowing God is to have overcome death and the power of death. Knowing the origin and the secret of illusion is to transcend illusion. The spheres of illusion dominated by the 7 astral powers are between the soul and God. Beyond these spheres are the 9 celestial abodes, where according to the mysteries of Meta, she sought in vain the lost Persephone because from these abodes she had fallen into a dull and mundane state, and had therefore fallen under the power of the planetary rulers, that is, of fate personified by PKT. On the 5th day, the divine drama teaches Meta to find the goddess of condemnation and punishment, the terrible and cathetriformis personification of karma, who tells the mother of the abduction and detention of Persephone in the world of Hades, and we are told that cathetriformis then becomes the constant companion of Persephone. All of this is, of course, filled with the deepest meaning until the soul falls into matter. It has no destiny or karma. Destiny is the inheritance and result of time and manifestation in the 7 astral spheres. The moon represents destiny and presents 2 aspects, the benign and the malign. Under the benign aspect, the moon is Artemis, reflecting in the soul the divine light of fires. Under the malign aspect, she becomes the avenger, dark-faced and with 3 heads transforming into a horse, a dog, and an implacable lion. She swiftly, shrewdly, and pitilessly hunts guilty souls from birth to birth, mocking even death with infallible justice. To the innocent soul until then, lunar powers are favorable. Artemis is the patroness and protector of virgins, that is, of souls not defiled by transit into matter. In this aspect, the moon is the initiatrix Isis, the illuminator, because through charitable karma or destiny, the soul receives superior enlightenment, and the dark corners of its abodes are illuminated by sacred reminiscences in subsequent births. This soul becomes prophetic and divine to the corrupt and malicious. The influence of the moon is malign to him because for him it assumes the aspect of Hecate, striking by night and terrorizing with ghostly omens of misfortune. These souls fear lunar power, and in this instinctive fear they can discern their secret recognition of the malignant destiny they are preparing for themselves in future existences. The tree of good and evil, says the Kabbalah, has its root in March. It has been asserted at times that the doctrine of karma is unique in Hindu theology. On the contrary, it is clearly shown in the Hebrew, Hellenic, and Christian mysteries. The Greeks called it destiny. Christians know it as original sin. All men come into the world with this sin, and it is because of it that all are condemned. Only the Mother of God is free from it, the Immaculate Virgin, through whose seed the world will be redeemed. As the lily among thorns, says the Church in the office of the Immaculate Conception, so art thou among the daughters of Adam. Fair and lovely art thou, and the original stain is not in thee. Thy name, O Mary, is as oil poured out. Therefore the virgins love thee exceedingly. If then by Persephone or Kore, the Virgin of the world, we are taught to understand the soul clearly, we are also clearly taught by Crisis, admitting justice and illumination in the same way that Kore, Virgin and Mother, is philosophically identical to Isis, already the Greek personification of fertility and the mighty nourishing power of nature. She was considered the inviolate and perpetual maiden of heaven. Her priests were wealthy, and her image in the magnificent temple of Ephesus represented her with many breasts. In works of art, Artemis appears in diverse forms, as the huntress accompanied by a pack of hounds and with hunting utensils, as the goddess of the moon covered with a long veil reaching to her feet and her head adorned with a crescent moon, or as the mother maiden with several breasts holding a torch lit in her hand. The Latins venerated her under the name Diana, and it is under the name of Diana that Artemis is mentioned in the Acts of the Apostles. Isis had all the attributes ascribed to the lunar divinity of the Greeks and Romans. Therefore, like Artemis and Diana, she was identified with the hidden principles of nature, that is, destiny. In its aspects and various relationships, destiny was sometimes seen as fortune, punishment, condemnation, or fate. a principle represented, as we have already seen, by the Kabbalists under the figure of Mansur, or the moon, and by the Hindu theosophists under the more abstract conception of karma. The pack of Artemis or Diana are the hidden powers that hunt and pursue the soul from birth to death, the inevitable forces of nature that, always following the steps of every ego, hurl it towards conditions successively engendered by its actions, like effects by the causes. Hence Action, abusing destiny and ignoring the sanctity and inviolability of this law impossible to change, which is karmic destiny, has been torn apart by his own hounds, that is, his own actions, which by decree of the implacable goddess are thrown upon him and tear him apart. The abstract conception of the moon was so closely related to the secret influence and power of destiny in nature that in the commentary on Timaeus it is said of Diana that she presides over all generation. Natural existence leads towards light through natural reasons and extends a prolific power from above to the underworld. These words fully describe the Egyptian Isis and show us how the moon, seen occultly as karmic power, was considered the cause of continuous generation in natural conditions, pursuing souls even in Hades or purgatory spheres and inflicting crystallization of their past. Arhige also in the Orphic hymn to nature, this goddess is identified with fortune and is depicted standing on a wheel, which she continually spins, swiftly moving in the eternal wheel. And again, in another Orphic hymn, Fortune herself is invoked as Diana Brock. In the aforementioned commentary, it is declared that the moon is the cause of nature in mortals, and the author reveals the source of nature. If, says Thomas Taylor, the reader wishes to know what we should understand by the source of nature, of which the moon is the image, let him pay attention to the following information derived from long and deep study of ancient theology, from which I have learned that there are many divine sources contained in the essence of the Creator of the world, among which three are very distinguished. These are the source of souls, one was the source of virtues or Minerva Athena, and the source of nature or Diana Artemis, and this information will allow us to explain the meaning of the following passages in Apuleius, the first of which is at the beginning of the 11th book of his Metamorphoses, where the divinity of the moon is represented as speaking in this sublime manner. Behold, Lucius, moved by your prayers I am present, I who am nature, the father of things, the lady of all elements, the initial progeny of the ages, the highest of the divinities, queen of departed spirits, the first of heavenly gods and goddesses, the sole likeness of all, governing with my head the luminous heights of the heavens, the health of the breezes of the sea, and the toilsome silences of the infernal regions, and whose divinity, which is in itself one, is venerated by the whole earth under many characters, various rites and different appellations. Those who are illuminated by the rays emerging from the rising sun, the Ethiopians and the Aryans, and similarly the ancient Egyptians, powerful in their knowledge, who venerate my divinity with perfectly appropriate ceremonies, call me by my true appellation, Queen Isis. And again in another place in the same book, it says of the moon, the highest gods worship you, and those in the lower realm honor your divinity. You have set the world in motion and illuminated the sun. You rule the universe and tread on Tartarus. Earth responds to you, the stars rejoice, time turns through you, the elements serve you. From all this it is deduced, and if we consider it as the deity of nature subsisting in the demiurge, and which is the exemplar of this nature that flourishes in the lunar orbit and throughout the material world. Thus enlightened on the office and functions of Isis, we can understand why she has been chosen by the writer of the following Hermetic fragment as an exponent of the origin, history, and destiny of the soul, because she is in a peculiar sense the arbiter during the existence of the soul, its guardian and supervisor. If Meta, the divine intelligence, is the mother of Kor, then Isis is her adoptive mother, because as soon as the soul falls into generation, Isis becomes its director and the supplier of its destiny. It is not surprising then to find that for some mythologists, Isis is identified with Demeter, and the sufferings of the first are modified according to IU to harmonize with the allegory of the pains of Demeter as set forth in the mysteries. But the cause of this confusion is obvious to those who understand correctly the Hermetic method, and whether as good fortune Artemis or bad fortune Kate, she is the controlling and illuminating influence of the soul while it remains under the jurisdiction of nature and time. Meta, the divine intelligence, represents the celestial source or supermundane force from which the soul originally takes its being, and as such is directly affected not with its exile and wanderings in material conditions, but by its final recovery from generation and its return to the celestial dwellings. Consistent with this idea, Isis is sometimes depicted as the wife, sometimes as the mother of Osiris, the savior of men, because Osiris is the microcosmic sun, the homologue in the human system of the macrocosmic Dionysus, son of the sun. So those authors who confuse Isis with Demeter and understandably confuse Osiris with Dionysus and see the former as the fundamental figure of the mysteries. Under the Hermetic books admit three expressions of deity. First, the supreme abstract and infinite God, eternally self-sufficient and not manifested in the second place, the only begotten manifestation of deity in the universe in third place, God in man. The Redeemer, Iris, in one of the walls of the Temple of the Son of Philae. And at the door of this meditator there are inscribed the following words: He has done all that is, and without him nothing of what is would have been done, words that 14 centuries or more later were attributed by the author of the Gospel of St. John to the Word of God. The microcosmic sun juice's iris was the image or correspondence of this macrocosmic sun. The regenerative principle in man generated through the experience of the soul in time and generation, and hence the close association between this regenerative principle through which the redemption of the individual is achieved, and the divine power in nature personified by Isis, whose function was